Hello and welcome. Based on the climate engineering argument map, this movie introduces the arguments contra deployment of climate engineering methods. The vast majority of the critical arguments directly support the thesis T9, CE deployment wrong. Let's see how this claim connects to the rest of the debate. If deployment of CE methods were morally wrong, argument A22 argues, there would be no need to have these methods ready for deployment in the first place. That means that thesis T9 via A22 attacks thesis T2, which is a major assumption of the central justification of CE research. Back to the claim that deploying CE would be wrong. The critical arguments that support this claim are shown in the upper part of the argument map. They are grouped in different independent argument clusters. We have arguments based on ethics of risk, general criticism of technology and modern civilization, existentialist, environmental ethics based, and religious arguments, objections based on side effects of deployment, arguments from fairness and justice, and, not directly related to T9, geopolitical considerations. In the following, we focus on the ethics of risk and on the fairness cluster because they exhibit the most complex internal dialectical structure. The ethics of risk cluster contains various prominent and independent objections against climate engineering. Thus, there is the argument A54 that CE deployment might, in sum, aggravate rather than alleviate climate impacts, which relies on thesis T11. The termination problem, A45, refers to the fact that some CE methods have no viable exit options. Moreover, the irreversibility of climate engineering interventions is cited as another reason not to do it. Next, argument A46 objects to CE deployment with reference to our society's lacking ability to ensure long-term control. And finally, we have argument A49, which generally highlights unseen side effects of climate engineering. This latter argument is attacked on two grounds, as it is argued that we have never perfect foresight and that mitigation measures too have unseen side effects. The unseen side effects objection has to assume that the precise consequences of CE will remain highly uncertain, or, in other words, that climate engineering deployment involves persistent, irreducible uncertainties. This specific assumption is backed up by argument A52, which in turn builds on various more specific reasons. For example, the possibility of human error, the complexity of the Earth system, or socioeconomic uncertainties. Besides warranting argument A49, the claim that climate engineering involves irreducible uncertainties also counters an objection to thesis T11. For it might be argued against T11 that predictive progress is possible, A53, and that at a future point in time we might come to know that climate engineering is safe and definitely won't make things worse. Stressing irreducible uncertainties, however, forestalls such an argument. Consider the arguments from fairness and justice next. On the one hand, the cluster contains a complex argument by Stephen Gardiner which says, in a nutshell, that given the strong opposition to mitigation, there won't be a broad global consensus on climate engineering deployment either. On the other hand, we have a line of reasoning that condemns climate engineering deployment in view of its unequal regional and temporal consequences, A60. Now, different theories of justice and fairness might be mobilized to justify that the inter- and intra-generational distributional effects of climate engineering would be unjust, such as egalitarian accounts of justice, or principles that prioritize those already worst off. Let us finally reconsider the full spectrum of objections against climate engineering deployment. By accepting one of these critical arguments, one is compelled to denounce CE deployment as morally wrong. Conversely, if one wants to maintain that CE deployment is, at least under certain conditions, permissible, one has to refute, for reasons of consistency, each and every objection contained in the upper part of the argument map. Thank you very much for your attention.